Have you ever stopped to truly consider how dangerous poverty can be? The Bible already spoke about things that you'll likely identify with and be impressed by. How can texts so ancient have such relevant contexts? Surely, in His infinite wisdom, God has always been warning us about these things. Today you will discover the imminent dangers of poverty. Pay attention until the end of the video, as this content will not only expand your worldview, but also help you protect yourself from certain evils. Poverty is extremely dangerous and risky. This may seem evident, but it is essential to mention because many are accepting it without taking measures to change. Many are getting used to financial tightness, the stress of overdue bills, the scarcity of resources, even for decent food, believing that if they are born poor financially, they will inevitably die in that condition. Despite social and economic injustices, corruption, and the difficulty of overcoming scarcity, we do not live in a system where ascent is impossible. Proof of this is that there are numerous examples of individuals who were born in difficulties but prospered in a legal and honest manner. Many cases of people who overcame the barrier of poverty. Don't get too comfortable with poverty to the point of not taking action to escape it, as poverty is extremely risky. This is not me saying it, it's the Bible itself, and here you will learn about the 7 hidden dangers of poverty described in the Holy Bible. The experience will open your eyes to escape poverty. So are you enjoying the video? Don't worry, there's more to come. We're just getting started. So go ahead and subscribe to not miss any of our videos. The first risk of poverty: the poor are avoided. The poor are even avoided by their neighbors, but the friends of the rich are many. Proverbs 14:20. This topic may be a bit delicate, so pay attention. Note that this verse is not talking about how things should be, not stating how God would like people to act. No, the proverb describes how things actually are, how the poor are truly treated. And it's true, they are avoided even by their neighbors. You may have avoided someone who always came to you asking for things, or you may have been avoided for being someone who always asked for things. It shouldn't be like that, but it is. People scorn the poor. The person in a situation of need is despised by all their relatives, even more so by their friends. Although they seek them for help, they find them nowhere. Proverbs 19:7. On the other hand, opulence brings many friends, as we see in Proverbs 19:4. Yes, of course we can question the quality of the friends brought by opulence, but it's a fact. Opulence brings many friends, and even a friend of the poor abandons them, as the B part of Proverbs 19:4 completes. Obviously, God does not want His faithful to act this way. On the contrary, even Jesus commanded not to deny someone who asks to borrow something, Matthew 5:42. However, most do not follow divine commandments. Most avoid the poor, and you obviously do not want to be avoided. If you are in a financially unpleasant situation, I sincerely hope you get out of it as soon as possible. But be the first to worry about it. So, let's start like this. Type the following sentence in the comments: "This year, I will change my life." Just comment that: "This year, I will change my life." When I see this comment, I will be very happy because I see that you are really eager to change your reality. And as support, I will leave a little heart in your comment. I will also leave in the first pinned comment a video where I talk about the 8 habits to enrich according to the Holy Bible. When you finish this video, it's very prudent to watch that one too. Well, now that you've commented, let's continue. The second risk of poverty: the poor are ignored, not just avoided. The poor are ignored. Solomon observed this fact and recorded it in the book of Ecclesiastes. There was a small city with few inhabitants. A mighty king came against it, surrounded it with many war devices. Now in that city lived a poor but wise man, and with his wisdom he saved the city. However, no one remembered that poor man. So I thought, although wisdom is better than strength, the work of the poor is despised, and soon no one pays attention to his words. Ecclesiastes 9:14-16. Faced with such an account, remember how many poor people are ignored by their employers, how many poor people are ignored by politicians, how many poor people are even ignored by other poor people or even by some churches. You don't want to be ignored, nobody does. So, it is necessary to escape from dangerous poverty. Important note, every coin has two sides. If on the one hand, poverty has dangers described in the Bible, on the other hand, wealth also has dangers described in the sacred scriptures. Another important point, the intention here is not to denigrate the poor or the rich. The intention is to present the facts. The goal is to show the dangers of poverty and the dangers of wealth. I do believe that you should seek to get out of poverty, but I also think you should be careful with opulence. Ideally, neither poverty nor material opulence should be stumbling blocks to your spiritual prosperity. In this sense, Agur made an impactful prayer in Proverbs 30 from 7 to 9. He asked the Lord, "Do not give me poverty or riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full and deny you and say, 'Who is the Lord?' Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God." Finally, observe that poverty and opulence are not sins. However, these states can contribute to sinful behavior. Poverty can contribute to people committing thefts, as Agur's prayer well exposes, and opulence can contribute to someone denying the Lord. Third risk, the poor lose their production. The poor man's field yields abundant food, but injustice robs him of what he produces. Proverbs 13:23. The labor of the poor is capable of generating much profit. Their land and possessions can also produce a lot. However, much of what they produce is lost due to lack of justice. There is much injustice towards the poor: corruption, abuse of power, violence, lack of basic sanitation, and high tax burden, which nowadays has increased even more, are examples of this. However, just as the poor suffer from unjust actions committed by others, they also suffer from the injustice they have committed for themselves. The poor can produce a lot, working hard in an honest and profitable business, but they can lose a significant portion of their production due to foolish financial decisions. I'll share something I recently heard that illustrates what I'm saying. A friend who was renovating his house told me he was astonished by the amount charged by all the masons, helpers, and companies. He said everything was very expensive, but what surprised him the most was how many of the workers he hired wasted the money they received. He claimed that most of those working on his renovation received their pay on Friday, spent it all on drinks over the weekend, and showed up still drunk on Monday for work. Upon hearing this, I immediately thought of this proverb: "The poor man's field yields abundant food, but due to injustice from others towards him, and from himself towards himself, he loses it." Fourth risk, the poor are ruined by the opulence of the rich. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city, but poverty is the ruin of the poor. Proverbs 10:15. Just as money attracts more money, financial poverty attracts more poverty. As Psalms 42:7 says, "Deep calls to deep," and this is true for both good and evil. The implications of this truth can be observed in all areas of life. See, poorer countries generally have a lower life expectancy. Poor people are usually subject to less healthy nutrition, leading to more illnesses. The poor have to live farther away from work, thus facing more time in traffic, being more exposed to pollution and stress, and having to sleep less to arrive on time. Unfortunately, poverty is the ruin of the poor. We need to open our eyes to the following financial reality: that money is a great protection against many dangers in life. This is what the Bible states in Ecclesiastes 7:12. Wisdom offers protection, just as money does. And as money is a protection, if you don't have it, if you're in poverty, you'll be less protected and more susceptible to ruin. Yes, poverty is risky. Fifth risk, the poor are oppressed. If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. Ecclesiastes 5:8. In Solomon's time when he wrote this text, the poor were already victims of oppression, and this oppression continues to this day. Sixth risk, the poor are dominated by the rich. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. Nowadays, it is almost impossible for the poor not to resort to debts. They will one day have to finance the purchase of their cell phone, appliances, car, house, etc. However, there is a biblical truth that many ignore. The truth that debt is a slavery that makes the poor increasingly dominated by the rich. Every penny owed represents more interest that the poor will have to pay, interest that will further undermine the finances of the poor and make the rich even richer. To prove this fact, just look at the profits of the major banks. Look at the profits of Itaú, Bradesco and Santander. If the economy is doing well, they make a lot of profit. If the country is in crisis, they make even more profit. If you want to escape poverty and its extreme dangers, avoid being dominated, avoid loans and financing. They can enslave you. Seventh risk: the poor are mistreated. In addition to being dominated, the poor can be mistreated. The poor plead for mercy, but the rich answer harshly. Proverbs 18:23. Financial discrepancies have an impact on social bonds. Poverty establishes a condition of vulnerability where people need to lower themselves, seeking mercy. Unfortunately, this plea is interpreted as rudeness. If you have already faced or are currently facing a challenging economic situation and had to resort to extreme measures, you clearly understand what I am expressing. Those who need to seek financial assistance from family and friends often hear undesirable words, depreciation, lack of courtesy, and critical assessment. This is not how divinity wishes people to behave, but it is how they yield. Scripture does not omit this reality, so avoid being mistreated, stay away from poverty. The 7 risks of destitution are revealed in the sacred scripture. Firstly, the poor are avoided. Secondly, the poor are neglected. Thirdly, the poor suffer losses in their production. Fourthly, the poor are ruined by poverty. Fifthly, the poor are oppressed. Sixthly, the poor are dominated by the rich. Seventhly, the poor are treated unjustly. This is not desirable for you, your children, spouse, siblings, or parents. Therefore, strive to escape poverty with integrity. I'm not suggesting that you should become a billionaire, but remaining in scarcity is not beneficial. A warm embrace, may divine tranquility be with you, and until the next video.